whole story of judgment after death is just a big lie. And it's just fed to us to keep us in fear. To keep us in fear of being judged and going to hell. To keep us in fear from rising up against the powers that be. How in the hell does anything think that it's going to judge us? And how is it that we believe that something is going to judge us? Ask yourself, what right does it have to judge us? When you look at the history of what these supposed gods were, the way they treated us, what they did to us, they treated us like a psychopathic megalomaniac would treat us. They lack morals, they lack ethics, they lack everything, as evidenced by the history, as evidenced by what their half-breeds do, as evidenced by, it's all around us. Yet humans sit in this state in their mind because of the belief that's been put in their head of condemnation if they were quote-unquote bad boys and bad girls. There is nothing out there that is quote-unquote pure and perfect. Nothing. Everything is fallible. Everything makes mistakes. Yet we sit here and think that when we die, that we're going to be judged by some, and it's all from the context of condemnation. Condemnation for the little beast animals because you were bad, because you were sinners. If we were taught in the right ways all the things that humans need to know, and then began to behave like animals and heathens and those types of things, it might sit better with me, this concept of judgment. But considering I know on a fairly intimate level, the level of trauma that has been heaped upon the human children, the level of trauma that has been heaped upon the adults through wars and pestilence and plagues and famine and poverty and slavery, when you endure those things, you develop in different ways. When your epigenetic environment is as toxic as it was for those of us who came out of an environment, an epigenetic environment that was just as toxic as it gets, even something that we would call quote-unquote God would have to understand now, wouldn't it? But no, judgment, you're a sinner, condemnation, gonna send you to hell. Do you see that? Do you see how that works? I do not, for the life of me, understand. I cannot comprehend how any conscious and awakened human being could see this God story as real or true, could see this condemnation thing as just, or anything in that realm, let alone valid. Who the for these rancid demons to judge us, considering the bullshit we've been put through upon this earth? I mean, sit with that, humans. Just because they're more advanced race than we are does not make them perfect, and that does not give them the right to judge us for anything, especially when you contrast their behavior towards us. You know, if I make something, if I engineer it, and I wanted it to be an unconscious golem, like a robot, a flesh robot, that just did everything I commanded it to do, that's one thing. But if I engineer something, and somehow through the process of doing that, it became conscious, sentient, self-aware, and had intelligence, that changes the playing field. If I thought for 1 second that there was some perfect, divine thing out there that was lording over us as a benevolent creature, guiding its benevolent and loving, or its creation and all that other shit, that would be one thing. That is not what this is. That is not what, unless they're at low levels of consciousness and never awakened to religion. There's no evidence for any of this shit, meaning the perfect, divine thing. None whatsoever. But when you die, you're going to be judged. You were a sinner. You did things to hurt people. Who in the f*** do these wretched creatures think they are to cast judgment upon a species that they so horribly brutalized? You really got to sit with that and let it steep for a while. To judge us as being bad, quote-unquote, in lieu of the fact that we were born into a realm that was controlled by evil, that knew more about the species that we are than we know about ourselves, that knew more about the reality and the rules of the construct, if you will, the metaphysics and stuff like that, than we do. And then began promptly, generation by generation, working to degrade the species. But you're going to be judged, meat sack. This whole concept of judgment after death is the sick and twisted psychopathic machinations of a sick and twisted psychopathic entity, group of entities, group of beings that are all playing judge, and they themselves should be judged and condemned and removed from existence. Their heads removed and, things like that. Who the do they think they are? And isn't it interesting that there's nothing out there to put them in check? Just because you have knowledge, power, ability, and long life doesn't make you perfect and doesn't give you any right to judge any other living being, especially when you engineered them in very specific ways and left them in an environment that was absolutely controlled by rancid, psychopathic, megalomaniacal demons. It's all such condemning bullshit. It's all such humans are wretches, we're like beasts and blah, blah, blah. And I'm just sick of it. Like literally, violently sick of it all. Let's flip the script. And, I would condemn that God to an eternity of nothingness, non-existence, forever and ever kind of thing, because it's such a rancid and vile creature, as evidenced by it made an entire sentient species and designed it in such a way that it could be manipulated from just about anything in the non-physical. And it didn't engineer us with the senses to be able to perceive that that was the fact, the case, and that that's what was actually going on. They can pull the strings of your life. They can destroy you. They can send horrible people into your fucking life. They can do. And, if it's not self-evident, nothing has ever come to help and assist the humans. Nothing has ever come to balance the scales, will help us to wipe out the evil. Empower us to do it ourselves. Don't save us from our own problems. But then again, since you put us in here with the evil that you knew was already here, maybe you could do a little something about it. You psychopathic, megalomaniacal, quote-unquote, God. And since we're so ignorant, they can play the game and play the part as our gods because they have technology that can do things that makes them appear godlike. The stories of the Anunnaki. They died. They just lived a very long time. They are not gods. They're advanced humanoids with advanced DNA and capabilities and capacities that we don't have. That, in fact, they're willfully engineered out of us so that none of us could rise to their level and put them in fucking check. That's what all this junk DNA is for. The evidence is pretty obvious to me. Look at how corrupt these judges are. The entire system of so-called justice is as corrupt as it could possibly be across the entirety of the world. It's not justice. It's just us. And we rule over you, and we will condemn you. But when you look at who the we that judge us are, they're all the most rancid, power-hungry, psychopathic, narcissistic, corrupt pieces of living filth that exist upon the earth. Seriously, do you doubt me? Can you prove me wrong? Can you show me any judge with a moral compass? No, you couldn't. You could think you were, but you just don't understand at that point what our legal system is, what these judges are, who they are, and that they have no right to judge us. Look at the cycles of war. Look at how much they've culled the population. Look at the cycles of cullings. Look at the resets. Look at the pestilence that was imposed upon the species by the quote-unquote gods in biblical references and ancient texts. Look at what they've done to us. I'm telling you, humans, the whole fucking game is rigged against us. Every single layer, every single aspect, all of it controlled, manipulated, scripted, and those types of things. Nothing is what we think it is. Nothing works the way we think it does, in the words of Jordan Maxwell, which is very true. And if you understand the concept of the Loosh Farm, ask yourself, what in the ever-loving hell do we think is actually going to be judging us? And based off of what? Its perfection? Only a psychopath would tell itself that it's perfect, and then tell itself that it has the right to rule over and or to judge anything that it deems to be below it. Ask yourself this: why, if I was created as a spirit endowed with will, do I have to do what anything says? I'm an autonomous, individuated unit of consciousness and spirit endowed with will. You just got to think of the hubris, the arrogance of whatever it is out there that thinks it has any right to judge any of us for anything, considering their track record of what they've done to us. How dare anything think that it has the right to judge us? When I just think of the arrogance, the hubris, the psychopathy, the megalomaniacal machinations of these rancid demons that have been lording over us and making our lives a living hell so we wouldn't advance too far or at all. In fact, they would degrade us so that we could never evolve or advance or develop to what we could truly potentially be because of the code that we have. They want to hold us back. They want to prevent us from development and growth and evolution so that they can keep their slaves down. I think when they created us, they didn't intend for, or they didn't expect sentience or intelligence or whatever to come out of it. I think it changes the playing field for the life forms that we are, but they don't care, and they still rule over us like they're some benevolent, all-powerful things. They're just assholes that are psychopathic, that have technology. That's all they are. That does not make them gods. But it damn sure is something that they can put into the heads of an ignorant species and drive them to their knees. We are so powerful, we are your gods. Worship us or condemn to death, humans.